welcome. Thank you very much for that beautiful music. It's much better listening to that kind of music and setting the mood rather than silence. So thank you, Queens, for putting that together. So before we get into this, our Queens have a few little housekeeping comments. So we will let them start with that just so the class knows what to expect and the boundaries and the space that we're trying to hold here tonight.
Thank you, Jody. Welcome everyone to our kindergarten equity crayon version. This event will be recorded for record purposes and will be shared publicly. So we'd like to ask that every participant here have their cameras on and show their faces. If you do not agree or do not wish to do so, you are kindly invited to remove yourself, or we will have to remove you. As I said before, this event will be shared publicly in all Dïevergent channels, YouTube, Telegram, and Facebook pages. So if you aren't following these channels yet, this is the chance to do so, and the links will be shared in the chat. For tonight, we'll be going through a document that our queens have diligently worked on, and the document will be as well shared in the chat, and you are welcome to download it. Please note that there won't be any question taken tonight, so feel free to put all the questions in the chat. And without further ado, I'll pass this over to Jody and Darren. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravina. We appreciate that. And we call our queens for a reason. They are Dïevergent queens. They show up for us anytime we need them. We want to give a special thanks to them right now, please.
So yes, tremendous effort, loved ones. I just need you to take a moment to appreciate what truly goes on in the background to manifest all this and actually get it organized and get it presented in a fashion that's going to be, again, consumable, as we've talked about in the past here. This is it. This is that thing unfolding we were talking about. I know this is going to be reminiscent of our very first video that we pulled down for specific reasons, some of which we never even really got into explaining it publicly. But this is going to carry on from kind of where we left off, but even better. And before Jody continues here, I just want to make one thing very clear. Again, please just take a moment in your hearts and your minds to acknowledge these lovely ladies in the background for stitching a lot of stuff together. And this is what leads me to this comment right here. This is going to be an evolving class. This is going to be an evolving document, which means even though we're starting here, we're not excluding, yes, but something may have happened even before the things we're talking about here right now tonight. Yes, it's almost like we're starting in the middle of the story just to get the ball rolling. And then we're going to go way back, and then we're going to go way forward and all over the place. Like
Star Wars style.
There are so many directions. There's so much substance here. We could talk about this stuff for months. So literally we just had to jump in somewhere. It's going to be reminiscent of some of the videos in the past that we have touched on certain topics. But, again, here we go. This is going to be for a simplified version of things. Plus, we will always be adding to this document. Whenever we find particular things that are relative to the things that we are speaking about here tonight, we will be adding it to this curriculum.
And here's the thing, loved ones, when we sat down, because here's the thing, we disappeared for a reason. We had to get equity. We had to know what it was. We had to taste it, feel it, touch it. And now that we know its energy, now how do you go and teach that to the masses? It's like the show, the movie, The Giver, the movie or the book that we all read in school. I just found out today that I forgot about. Amazing. As far as, following this whole energy of what equity is. And here's the thing, equity is its own language. And we have said that many times, loved ones. And here's the thing, doing the research that we have been doing, many words, what they used to mean in archaic meaning, means something completely different nowadays. They've actually, my favorite word, subrogated it. And so in order to see equity, we have to have equity eyes. And so Dïevergence has started building a glossary. And this is what I was saying earlier, is that when we actually had to sit down and go, how do we do this? The only way we can do this is actually to connect to a higher source. And Dïevergence has been very clear from the beginning that we do all of this through spirit. We do not do anything until we are clean and we are connected and we bring everything in with the perfect and the right frequency. That's why so many resonate with it.
And just let me clarify just for a moment in history here for myself and Dean. When we were on that common law trail, when we were on that public at law trail, trying to dissect and divergent and decode the legal system, we were actually continually running into little blocks. We didn't even really understand why. But it wasn't until we lost or got rid of the hate and the anger and the revenge that the little equity, little droplets started to come in. And after a little while, we finally got to come to comprehend and understand what equity truly is. It was nothing like we initially thought it was. And it's interesting how the deeper we go with this, the more it commands of us. And we'll get into that here in a little bit, but just realize this, loved ones. Dean and I felt a switch. We came into a greater appreciation for the broader picture here, the bigger picture here, loved ones. That really changed gears for us when we were more forgiving in our hearts and we were more accepting. We were coming with, again, more of a peaceful style attitude. It was very, very interesting how when we were coming from a place of darkness, that we were only being given dark to play with. We had to come forward first. We had to change ourselves. We had to overcome certain things to actually access greater knowledge. And that's what many of you loved ones are on here right now doing right now. So again, appreciate your effort here.
So this is why Dîevergent has built a glossary as well as a document for every episode that we're going to be doing. Now, here's the thing. When we started building this, the glossary is immense. If you even look, and we've actually included in the document, which will be in the chat, you can download it, and we will be sharing it in just a moment here. Even in our introduction, we were very strategic, again, on using specific words in our introduction to this course. And so even those words need to be broken down and explained, so that people can start to unravel this, begin to remove the different veils that are in front of them. So the words were so immense, we didn't get to all of it. There was just no way. And, there were times even with, Darren, he had to kind of walk me through some of this because, I was trying to catch my breath a couple times because I'm like, how do you explain something so grand? This is why we needed 6 months to wrap our brains, our hearts, and our energy around equity so we could explain it.
Yeah, to make it more digestible for anybody that's, again, remotely tickled by what it is that's truly going on here in the background. Anybody searching the truth, anybody looking for greater wisdom, anybody seeking knowledge will receive it if you knock properly. And again, we are here now at this point to, again, start at the beginning to allow a greater influence here so that it can touch more people. This course, this kindergarten school, this presentation, the way that this is going to unfold, this Crayon version, we always have to be opening and keeping that door open for newcomers to come in. And this is where I'm actually going to ask, and to me, this seems pretty reasonable. Any of the veterans out there, anybody that looks at these definitions and says, oh yeah, I know what that is. I knew what that was years ago. Of course, yeah, we know this.
Many don't.
Many don't, though. So again, we're actually calling upon those with experience, those with, hey, I tried this and that didn't work. Hey, I tried that and wow, was that impressive? Again, the researchers, if you were to add up the hours that the loved ones, even on this presentation tonight, have spent in the last X amount of years investing in the truth here and trying to seek this greater knowledge, you get into there has been such an input of effort here. It's ridiculous. So again, we always need to be appreciative of new people coming in. And I expect, and actually I desire for you, if you ever have the opportunity to reach out and provide a little bit of your wisdom or a little bit of what you've come across or a little bit of what's, empowered and inspired you, that is incredibly inspiring for others. People at some point, they're going to get tired of me talking about this stuff. To me, this is so much more greater when I hear others taking this knowledge in this direction and this power, if you want to call it that, and going and accomplishing some things and getting some very interesting responses back. You can do this when you're 14 years old. I'll tell stories not on this episode, but of my ex, as a matter of fact, her son, what he did when he was 14 years old in elementary school is a beautiful story. The point is that there's no real age restriction that you can be doing this. So here we go. We're going to keep going with.
So let me tell you how this course started. We've known that we had to break down equity for some time, but on the Die5 Live, Darren would go and just spew all his equity. And I would hear him in the background. We've been monitoring and doing our courses at the Queens to make sure that everything's perfect. And he'd come off and he'd say, "So how was that, honey?" I'd be like, "Amazing. It was so good." And he'd go, "What did you learn?" I went, "Nothing." And he would go, "Well, what do you mean?" I'm like, "Here's the thing, honey. He's so tapped into equity right now. You know, he talks about feeding it to us in a fire hose. Sometimes it's a waterfall. And I live with this man. I'm with him. If I can't understand his knowledge at the level he does, sometimes I just spin and I just sit there and I just have this deer in the headlights look, which I see on most of the posts, on most of the videos that we have with people. We take videos, we have pictures of people, and they all have the same look. And it's the look of, okay, I know this resonates. This is totally familiar. I vibe all of this. But if you were to actually explain what you heard him talk about for the last hour, 99% of you would struggle. So how do we fix that problem? Well, Spirit goes, let's crayon this. So we got 3 levels. We have advanced, which is red. You're called the Sharpies of the group. You're the permanent markers. You know your shit. You've been doing this for a long time. You're known as the common laws. That's what I call you. You guys have been neck deep in this. You've been in the trenches. You've been laying a lot of foundation. We are so grateful and thankful to you. But there's no more hiding in the shadows. This is what Darren was talking about. We want you, these advanced, these experienced ones in comma, to step forward, help the ones that don't quite get the whole picture. You know, Big Kahuna, who is on our Telegram. I will use your Telegram name until you are comfortable using your full name. However, an amazing gentleman who contributes an immense amount of knowledge to our Telegram chat. Thank you. These are the people who we are looking for to build and improve on our current documents. We're not going to give you all of our forms and documents anymore, loved ones. We're going to give you pieces and we're going to help you build it. Why would we give you a fish when it comes to equity when we could teach you how to do equity? And that's what this is about. So then we have pencil crayon version. So this is in between. This is somewhat rough, but getting there. It's immediate. It's going to be an orange. So again, we got red and for advanced Sharpie, pencil in orange, and then we got crayon version, which is going to be green. This is going to be, oh, I'm new to this. These are going to be people like my girlfriends, one of them, Jessica, Joanne, her mother, who are on here, who I have been talking to this about, who they go, "Jody, I don't know what's coming out of your mouth, but I don't know, it just makes me feel good." And this is literally what people say to us. Okay, well, we have to stop this making you feel good. We have to let you know why you're feeling good. That's important. And so again, we have designed this course for the masses. It's not for the experience. If you are green to equity, perfect. If you're an exhausted mother going, "Oh my goodness, I've heard about this, I have to wrap my brain around this," excellent. We have designed this specifically for you. It's going to be learnable by all. So when we hear comments about, can we have some more remedy, please? Now.
Not just yet.
No. Here, this is the thing about, you know, what we have learned of equity. And we've explained this before, is that getting through is not just about accessing your state, gaining your freedom. What we're trying to teach and what we have learned is that equity demands service of you, not the other way around. Otherwise, why would equity or the garden need you? Why would you be one of the chosen? What makes you special? Why should you be chosen over someone else out of all the 7 billion people? And this is a thing for, the new people, the greenhorns, our newbies. Equity has very little to do with remedy and paperwork. It's a matter of whether you're fit for the garden. Do you meet the specs, the vibration? Are you of the right love meter setting? Have you spiritually ascended enough? Have you done your work, shadow work, little you? If you don't even know what that means, we got to catch you up. We have a kindergarten specifically designed for you. This is about taking on your anchors to 3D, because guess what? We're in 3D. Guess where equity is? We've talked about this. It's in 5D. We have to ascend to it. Well, to rise, you have to get rid of what's holding you down, what's heavy. These are the traumas, the pains that you experienced. And then look at yourself. What kind of an energetic vibrational output are you putting onto the Earth's grid? Think about that. Let me ask you a question, loved ones. If you're standing at the doors of equity, in front of the powers that be, in front of 3 judges of equity, the question is going to be, you just changed everything for me. The question is going to be, how do you serve equity now? Darren knows how he's going to answer. He knows what his credentials are. He can spew them off. It took me a little bit, but I now stand in my power and know exactly how I speak of equity and how I serve it. Because guess what? I hear it. That's where spirituality comes in. How do you serve equity if you can't hear it? You can't hear it when you're in 3D. So this is why we talk about our wisdom system being 30% paperwork. I don't care if you can spew off a petition, an affidavit, a deed. Great. You could kick my ass in that. But here's where I can stand in my power, where I can stand in front of the powers that be of equity and go, I can hear what equity requires. I can channel its spirit, its intent. I know by the vibration of what we're bringing through here today.
So I would just like to refer to a post that I saw from another loved one on Facebook here just the other day, where he was trying to define what equity was. And he fundamentally described it as equality. Equity has equality components in it. But would I choose that as my number one way to define equity? I'm going to say no. Equity is the divine laws. It's the rules laid down by our creator. They were simple, they were effective, and they were unchangeable. Once these things were laid down, that's it. They could not be budged. They could not be messed around with. They were literally carved in stone for all of us. So again, it has to do with equality. Sure, down the line it does. But you know what? Realistically, equity was here first. Now, this was my first gripe with my colleague here that also alluded to equity is a legal term. No, it's not. Equity was here first.
It's its own term.
It's its own term. It was here. The system or the powers that were or what we see out there right now, they kind of picked equity apart. They carved it up. They reverse engineered it. They did stuff with it, and they created the legal system from it. So what equity truly is it's divine principles of love first and foremost, how to act fairly. This is where the equality would come in, sure. How to act fairly, how to treat others with respect. But more importantly, it talks about what's right and wrong, how to serve others first, how to be charitable. The legal system does not teach us to be charitable. So I just wanted a little clarification there as to what, when we start talking about this word equity, what really is it? Here's another thing that it is. It is the other side of the curtain that we never see when you go to a presentation, or when you go to an opera or the theater or a movie. When that curtain opens and you watch the rehearsal, or you watch the game, or you watch whatever it is, the presentation, there's always going to be a set or another curtain behind that. Okay, well, what's behind that one? Well, that's where equity's hiding. Back there, it's not right out open in the public. You'll very rarely hear the word equity used in the public. As a matter of fact, you'll only find it sparingly used in legal documents or legislation that parliaments put down for the people or the public to follow. So only in rare instances will you ever even see the word. As a matter of fact, we'll talk here in a minute. Equity is only used in the Bible a handful of times. And in some of the Bibles, it's been removed altogether. It's a very powerful word. And this is truly fundamentally, loved ones, what the darkness or what the evil forces wanted us to never figure out is what equity truly means and what you can do with it. They wanted you to know all about the legal system. They wanted you to get very good at the legal system so that you could go ahead and be under.
Good little boy and girl.
You would be
good little citizen.
You'd be under the control of that legal system. Equity is literally trying to give you your control back if you want it. So that's what this course is going to be about, loved ones. We're going to get into that a little bit. So if equity is new for you, but you've been doing your spiritual work in the background. Equity may be a little bit confusing on the surface, but you know what? You will make progress very quickly. I can fill in the dots very quickly when it comes to the paperwork and the wordings. What we need, though, is a clean spirit.
What if we actually told you that the paperwork was the easiest part of equity? Just let sink in.
It's just going to be a number of steps. There's going to be a number of criteria that once you meet the following, boom, boom, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, whatever. Once you meet these procedural requirements that the courts require, or that how do you create a trust? A trust is like a contract, but it's a little bit different. It's a little bit, let's just call it special. It's a little bit better. So until we have some of these fundamental concepts, or as soon as we have a little bit more knowledge and ability, once we are a little bit more flexible with the way we think about things, again, when this is our biggest problem, is when we're trying to introduce this to people for the first time. They're very rigid in their beliefs and what they know. They're very closed off to new ideas. So the problem here is that when you're very set in your ways, we, divergence, equity, has a very tough time trying to hammer the truth into you. You're actually what the Bible calls stiff-necked, as in you're not really open to anything new. And if you're not open to anything new, equity can't really help you. And it's very interesting here because this has a lot to do with innocence. The innocence of being young, of being a 7-year-old. You're not subject to a lot of the influences that the legal system has waiting for you out there. Why? Because you're not old enough to experience it yet. Yeah, you may see it in mom and dad, but for you personally, you have a little bit of time here. And we're trying to grab 7-year-olds and 12-year-olds and give them some ideas. And we're trying to boil this down in a method so that they can actually start to formulate and articulate some of the principles and doctrines that equity has to offer. And believe it or not, loved ones, I've seen it happen in 10-year-olds, where they actually took control of an elementary school and had the teachers and the principal back down. How does a 12-year-old pull that off? Equity helps. So
That's
again,
the big guns.
this is the muscle. This is the heavy duty stuff. This is where all the power is. The legal system is only a shadow of something else. The point, though, is that we could never really identify or see what that something else is. All we ever concentrated on, the only thing we ever really saw was the shadow.
So with that, we have said this before, equity is 5D. It is a frequency. It is a specific vibration. It is a state of being. If you don't rise to it, or at least match its vibration, you don't get in. this is what we learned. So I will have Queen Kim now share the document so that we can actually see this. Oh, Kim.
Yeah, just give me a moment, please.
Okay, so we're going to keep talking here and then she will eventually share it. But for the record, Divergence really wants to set the intentions for this course. So there's no misunderstandings. Everyone understands what we're trying to unveil, what we're trying to reveal. And we really set it out in our intentions of what this course is about when we invited you for the event. You're going to notice when we share this actual document that there are many words that are highlighted. These are words that are going to be in our glossary. They're going to be in the order that we go through the document. And then eventually we're going to have a master one that's in alphabetical order.
And are we going to color code this too?
Yes, we are.
Excellent.
So we actually are color coding it. You're going to notice even in the document that we have red for Black's Law. We have orange for Webster's or for a more medium version. And then of course we have Crayon version, which is Divergence version of breaking things down. So thank you, Kim, for sharing that. That's fantastic. Now, what we did is we did include what we posted as far as the introduction for our course. The reason we did this is we implanted it with many words that we have heard many times, but that we need to break down the actual meaning for. So we are building, like we mentioned, a glossary that is going to actually define all of this. And here's the thing, they have the current meaning and then they have archaic meanings. Why? And then this is the most amazing part, and we're actually going to prove this here tonight, is in our research, we found out that as you research what a word means today, it then at the very bottom in really small writing has the archaic version, which ironically enough is the complete polar opposite of the new version.
And this is where the bankers and the lawyers and the politicians and the corporations have gone in to the textbooks and they've taken a word and they're like, well, let's just alter that. And then we'll create a new textbook with a whole new meaning. And then we'll provide that to the masses, to the public, so that they are drawn or that they focus on a particular version of a word, which is why, again, thank goodness for the internet here and the ability for us to just be able to just do some of this real quick. And we can have instantly right in front of our very own eyes, 12 different versions of the same thing versus, can you imagine back in the day, 30, 40 years ago, going to a library to try to research this stuff when a lot of the times they wouldn't even have books like this in that library. You would have to go to a special library like the Library of Congress in the United States, where they would have all the special legal type books that have all the proper definitions in them. So again, we're blessed at this very moment in time to have this time to not only share, but to do a lot of research, to do a lot of digging and doing a lot of contributing.
Going down rabbit holes, as they call it.
That's, there's
love rabbit holes.
Just
saying.
Yeah, there's so much aha. When you have these aha moments, when you completely get rocked by something, these are moments in time where in your specific life, you will never forget these moments. You will always remember them. And then when you compound these and they grow and they multiply and they evolve, pretty soon you actually completely understand after several weeks or several months how to write your own deed of trust, how to vocalize or how to even just say the material or say what's in a deed of trust. For example, a deed of trust is just one of the few documents that we will be getting in here to right away. Again, it's not that we're trying to postpone the remedy for people. We're just trying to get as many encompassed or as many on the same page as we can so that when a big wave goes through, it's a comprehensive push.
You can't just show up to the doors of equity with paperwork. Not now.
We need more than that. Again, and this is such a critical time in history where they are expecting a lot from some of us, and then not so much from others. So do not be overwhelmed. Do not feel that you are never going to get caught up, even if you're 12 years old. As a matter of fact, I wish I had started this when I was 12 years old. At the point that I have, the knowledge of now, that 12-year-old is in such a beautiful position because from our experience and from our other loved ones' experience, we can combine forces here to bring that 12-year-old to such a state of consciousness within such a relatively short amount of time. To me, I just about lose sleep that this is going to have such a profound effect on our futures, is when we can get our children understanding what truly is going on and truly how to conduct themselves and, act accordingly in a society that was not built just for them.
So let's get into this, loved ones. So as you can see, as the document is up there, I shouldn't say I was, Darren will actually attest to this. There was a point where I couldn't get my grasp on where to start. How do you start at the beginning of equity? Where is the beginning? And that's where Darren was great in saying, you can't just start at the beginning. This is going to be very much like Star Wars, where we jump in, where Spirit says, explain this first. And my team drew me completely to the fruits from a poisonous tree. Now, Melvin Stamper is the author of this, but Divergence kind of feels that it's more the fruit that was poisonous, not the tree. Okay, so with that, we don't question where Spirit takes us. We want to explain to our loved ones why Spirit's taking us here. This is Edward Meadowhouse, and he had a private meeting with Woodrow Wilson, who is the president who ruled between 1913 and 1921. He got elected twice. And he predicted the creation of what's known as the straw man, and what the bankers' plans were to enslave the American people and world. Now, again, we know some people, they've got the glasses on or they're in black and white, and none of this will make sense to them at all. And that's okay. That's fine.
This was never taught to us. So again, this was a matter of our own due diligence going and finding these things. And by these things, I mean, there is virtually no end to this. There is so much stuff here hiding in the background that unless you went looking for it, you wouldn't really find it, because they do not put this in the curriculum for any public school system anywhere on the planet. As a matter of fact, they actually try to indoctrinate us with the complete opposite of what this gentleman is about to talk about. So again, this is he was an important advisor to the president. It says he was a colonel, so I'm assuming he was of a military type position. Just to surmise what this gentleman is talking about, he starts to get into, hey, Mr. President, if we do a certain something over here and a few things over there, we can trick the American people so that they will actually pay for everything we desire. It's like, can you imagine saying that you want to go have you want to go buy a car, but you don't have to pay for it because the gentleman standing over there with his hand up is suggesting he'll pay for it? Would you not be interested in a deal like that? I'm thinking most people would. Excuse me, sir, are you sure you would like to pay for my car so that I could drive it off the lot and go and enjoy this? And yeah, you're sure? Well, okay, we'll sign here if you're sure. Yeah,
especially when his hand is strapped up.
It's gonna be, he's stuck. He's actually volunteering to help you. Problem is that we have all volunteered to help somebody that doesn't have our best interests in their mind or in their hearts. There's a lot of dark entities out there. There's a lot of dark forces out there that really have taken advantage of the innocence of mankind, man and womankind's trusting nature. Greed has played an incredible component here, loved ones, throughout history. Greed has done a lot of bad stuff to everybody. It's almost like greed has taken over. And for the most of us, we've forgotten how to love each other. All we know how to do nowadays is be greedy. We only want this and want that. And very rarely do we act with kindness towards others, where we would rather see someone else's happiness by something you could do for somebody. No, it's all about me, and what can I get? And again, this is part of a society that teaches parents how to teach their children. So again, these bankers, these lawyers, these politicians that knew the system, they're the ones that helped create it. And then they used it to control and hurt people. This has a very negative effect, and it has a positive effect. Believe it or not, there is good in this. We'll talk about that coming up here, as we have mentioned this in the past, and it's a little bit more simple than we could ever have thought.
So we've included this in the document, as you can see here. So what we want to do is we want to dissect this sentence by sentence, word by word, so that we can start layering this and creating a language for equity. Because if they're changing everything to mean its opposite, that's why, I mean, there's a piece of legislation I sat and read for an hour, rocking myself to the point where Darren comes over, he's like, what's the matter? I'm like, I can't wrap my head around this because it's like a contradiction of terms. And he just started laughing. He's like, honey, that's kept us spinning for 20 years. So get that the language was meant to be confusing. So if it's confusing, good. Now let's start pulling it apart. So the very first part of this document says, number one, very soon. Okay, and you're going to see that there's certain sections that are highlighted blue there. These are all going to be simplified in red, orange, and green, which is going to be advanced, intermediate, and crayon version. So they literally, when we're talking about this, you can piece this all together in crayon, in a crayon sentence, so that it's easy for you to get. So this is what we're going to dissect, and we're actually only going to get probably to the I designed it to get to the bottom of register. That's it. But we're going to do our best to move through this so that you actually are starting to get the component of every energetic word here. So let's read the whole phrase we're going to dissect. Very soon, every American will be required to register their biological property in a national system designed to keep track of the people, and that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. So let's talk and break down what American means. Now, the red and orange version of it is relating to or characteristic of the United States or its inhabitants, a native or citizen of the United States. So let's crayon that. It means you are a member of a club. You're either in the private club or you're in the public club.
So to just elaborate, just to touch more on this, an American, a Canadian, an Australian, it doesn't matter. Whatever inhabitant of a country, whatever the name of the country is, when they use that word to describe who you are, this is where things start to go sideways right away. Are we born an American or a Canadian or an Englishman or a woman? No, that happens after the fact. You're born a baby girl or a boy. Everything else comes secondarily, or else it's attached to you. You're not born with a title like a country, or that you're an inhabitant, or that you're a resident of that country. No, that's you joining the club later. So we just need to clarify, just for the record here, you're not born a particular citizen of a country. That's all make-believe. That's what we call fictions. And we talk about fictions here pretty quick. So hang on.
So here's the thing, like Darren said, are you an American or are you a man? Did our father create Americans? No. As what ended up happening is we appointed ourselves as gods. We appointed ourselves as persons, as actors in a play. And we're going to get into this in a little bit more detail. Okay, so let's talk about persons, because again, what you're going to learn about equity is that wording and terminology is very important. This is where we all got tricked. And in most cases, what we thought a word meant is actually the complete opposite. Two examples of this is the word person and the word human.
These are by far the two of the probably the top three words that we as young people coming into this or veterans going in, they know this one already. But again, person and human, these are words that have been trained into our brains through a public system to accept what these meanings are. Problem is that we are spoon-fed the wrong definitions of these words.
So take us through Black's Law dictionary version of what a person is, please.
Okay, so Black's Law, this gentleman from several hundred years ago, very sharp individual, he writes a dictionary. This dictionary is full of legal words. It's full of equitable words. It's full of trust words and contracting words and words that you would hear in court. So this is a very special type of dictionary that the judges will use, lawyers and law firms use, and that type of people would actually use these types of dictionaries for the most part. So right in the beginning here where it says in general usage, I want to speak about the word general here real quick. General doesn't mean just average. They're actually talking about the military type word or the meaning of this word right here. General is a military term. You have colonels, you got lieutenants, you got generals, you got corporals, you got, all right, there you go. So point being, we're already talking about some military stuff here. So the fact that this is military comes into play very important here in the very near future that we're going to talk about. So just imagine, what does the military typically do? It does one of two things. It defends or it attacks, keeps peace. That's kind of all the military technically does. So a human being in the general use of the word, i.e., or for example, a natural person. I would like to actually stop right here for a moment. A natural person is almost an oxymoron. To have natural and to have person in the same definition is almost antithetical to each other. Why? Because persons are not natural. That's why. So even though this very sharp gentleman back in the day from several hundred years ago is suggesting a natural person, I'm going to suggest that a natural person doesn't even exist. So why is it here? Well, this is why it's here. The legal system can only talk about legal things. The legal system doesn't really talk about things that are living. It only talks about really pieces of paper. It really only talks about numbers and registration, the dates and events and things of this nature. So I just want to be very clear here for just a moment. Although this special dictionary is using the word natural person, just remember, Divergence recommends take the word person out of that, because at the end of the day, a person is not what we want to be in any shape or fashion, whether it's natural or artificial. We don't want to have anything to do with persons in your mind, because that is not what we were led to believe it was. Okay, so a human being, for example, a natural person, though by a statute term, which means legislation or means, the lawyers and the bankers came up with this term, may include a labor organization, partnerships, associations, corporations, legal representatives,
Corporations.
trustees in bankruptcy, or receivers. So the word human has a whole bunch of different little sub meanings, which is a little bit strange when you think about it. How can one item mean so many different things? Like even that in itself starts to stretch your imagination a little bit. And again, this was all done by design and it was done on purpose.
And wait till you know what human means. That'll be coming up.
So we want you to notice, or we want you to pay attention here, that there are two types of persons. They are typically a human being. Now again, so you have a human being something. The word human by itself is just a construct, but that thing needs to be something or pretend to be something or becoming something. So a human being able to act as something. So again, the use of these words, loved ones, and the way that these words are put together is very important. I can never, ever, ever emphasize or stress that enough. Some of these words that we were led to believe as children wind up being completely the opposite of what we thought they were.
And we got some goodies coming up. We got some proof.
You know, we always want to be a person. Everyone, this whole legal system wants us to be a person, wants us to be a person. Scripture or the Bible hates persons.
And we'll get into that.
That's coming up.
We got lots of scripture coming up on that. Do you want to explain the orange version, the Oxford version, please, of person?
Okay, so again, we're suggesting that a person is, again, a human being, a corporation, treated. That means, okay, so what is a corporation? Well, even as a 12-year-old, I think a corporation is a business, right? It's where you have a name that you created that you get to do business with. You get to go do things in a commercial world. You can trade, you can accept things, you can negotiate things. It's like a little player on a game board. This little token, this little item that you can drive around on a game. Remember, though, that game piece is not you. They're two different things. Most people thought we as a person was the game piece. This is why we got into trouble. When you're playing Monopoly and you wanted to be the little car or the boot or the hat, whichever one it was, that little game piece that you wanted to run around that board. Can you imagine thinking in your mind that you are the car, the boot, or the hat? If someone said, hey, what's your name? And you said, well, I'm the car, or I'm the hat. Oh, sorry, no, today I'm the boot. People are going to look at you like you're a little bit crazy, right? They would look at you and say, well, what do you mean you're the boot or the car? And you would try to tell them, well, look, I'm playing this game. I'm not using my name, but I'm using this game piece and I'm identifying as this game piece. And right now I'm the car. Well, unless you were playing Monopoly with that, or unless someone was playing Monopoly with you, they would think that you are completely crazy. They would have no idea what you're talking about. This is, at the end of the day, why a human being is not what we thought it was. It goes on to say here that a human being, a natural person with natural rights. I've got here, add clarity. Okay. A human being is not a natural person with natural rights. A human is, it's coming up here right away. I'm going to start to let the cat out of the bag though. A human it's a hybrid. It's a little of this and a little of that makes something else. So it's not what we were created by our creator, whoever created us. They didn't create us to act in person. As a matter of fact, they kind of shake their head. They're like, no, stop acting in person, stop acting in person. And there's a reason. There's a reason that they want us to, the system, the bankers, the lawyers, the politicians, the people with bad ideas and bad intentions for us, they want us not being ourselves for some reason. They want us acting as something else for some reason. And here's why. They may have control over the car, the boot, or the hat. They don't have control over you as a man or a woman, or a young man or a young woman, or a child even. They don't have control over any of that. But there's a reason they want us acting in person. There's a reason they want you acting like the boot, because they control the Monopoly game. They own it. When you show up to their game and want to play their game as one of their characters, that means you do so at your own risk. And believe it or not, you cannot hold them liable when you're playing their game.
That was too funny. Okay, here's Divergent's Crayon version. Because again, that makes sense as he's talking about it. But again, try and repeat it. Wow, sorry, our cat just takes a couple times to settle. Sorry about that. So here's the divergence version. So let's break this down. Let's actually break down, first of all, okay, you have to stop. Person. So per is a piece of something. Think of per se. And actually, Darren and I actually had a conversation about this an hour before. He's like, well, it's like per se. And I'm like, yes, but it's also like a say. And so we were like, oh, wow, look at that. It has a double meaning. It's your piece of the cake. It's your personal share. Now, when we look at son, a son is an offspring. It's who you descend from. It's what your relationship is to a descendant, where you chose to branch on the matrix tree as a corporation or a franchise.
So this is what, to elaborate on this just a little bit deeper. So it is our personal choice, a decision to become the son of something else if you're not happy with your dad or your father as it is right now. Can you imagine being granted free will so that you could even say, no, I'm not interested in this father anymore. I'd rather have another one.
Ooh.
Now,
Owie.
so, that might hurt your dad's feelings. If you were 7 years old, as a matter of fact, some of us, when we were 7 years old, we probably said, I hate you, Dad. When you got a spanking or when you did something bad or when you got sent to your room or, eat your peas before you get your cake, whatever it is, some trigger back there in the, way back in those archives triggered you to have, I don't want to say hate, that's a bit of a strong word, but you were not happy with Dad.
Highly emotional.
You were highly emotional. And as a matter of fact, you may have even tried to run away from home. Well, can you imagine being mad at Dad, running away from home, and then coming back, ringing the doorbell? And when Dad opens the door, you're standing there with a mask on your face. And your dad's looking at you going, who are you? And you say, Dad, it's me. And your dad looks at you and says, no, that doesn't look like my son. Whose son are you? And you say, no, Dad, it's me. I'm your son. I'm your son. And your dad says, nope, here's a picture of my son. He looks like this image. So
you look nothing like that.
So the mask that you put on when you decided to come home is part of the definition of the word person. It's a mask from ancient Greek theater days, Roman theater, way back then, probably even Egypt and Babylon, the Phoenicians, all those eras, way back in the day. A mask. You would literally leave your home, and as you're going out the door, you put this suit on, or this mask, or this costume on.
I identify as this.
You take on this new personality. You now become one of the public citizens when you leave your home.
It's your masquerade party.
It's a masquerade party, so that nobody can truly see who the real you is. All they see is a mask. So when you come back to Dad or back to your father or back to your creator and say, hey, Dad, it's me. Dad says, no, get out of my house. You're not my son. I do not recognize you. Boom. Why did this happen? Well, why did the son want to put on a different image? Why did the son want to take on a different mask? Where did this and why did this happen? This is where when we're about 15 or 16 years old, we sign up. We actually sign. Nowadays, they'll probably even have a digital version of this. I don't know. They're getting there. When we make an application to go get a special number so that we can go work and go make $15 an hour at McDonald's.
Enter the system.
When we make that application, you are entering into a game.
A matrix.
This game is very fundamentally in sync or in alignment with that Matrix movie. And so here's what's going on. I put on this mask. I go play a game. And what's the point to this? Well, the point is that the moment you put on this mask, you have to get rid of all your other rights in order to put on this mask. You have to trade. You have to make a decision because you can't have both. You have to pick one. And our moms and dads and our grandma and grandpas and our aunts and uncles and the people at our church, they had no idea that the moment we make application for a social security number or a social insurance number, or if you're in England, I don't even know what they call it there, but it's going to have something to do with social, you've agreed in writing to play a game. Unfortunately, loved ones, this game is a tough one. It is not very fun. It sets you up for an incredible amount of pain, misery, and suffering. We were never meant to play this game. We are gambling with our lives. Our Creator, our Father, did not want us to gamble with our lives. We're actually, I don't even want to use the word offending. We're seriously pissing Dad off when we do this. And we flaunt it. We parade around like we've just achieved something incredible. Well, what we've incredibly achieved is getting kicked out of our dad's house. He said, no, slam the door in our face. I don't recognize you. You're not my son. Get off my property. And you walk down the sidewalk and you're all sad and you're probably crying and you're thinking, why wouldn't my dad want me to be in the house with him? I thought he loved me. Problem is, yes, he loves you, but he does not love that you showed up wearing this mask, because this mask represents a whole bunch of bad stuff that we were never meant to do. As a matter of fact, it's so bad, our Creator gave us about 10 or 11 rules to live our lives by. And believe it or not, loved ones, when we put this mask on and when we start doing and we start acting in character or a costume, we actually broke the very first rule.
Commandment.
The very first commandment that our Father gave us. It's the very first, it's the most important one. And we just dismissed it. We just gave it no regard and we openly defied our Creator. And although he loves us, he's not very happy with us. Let's just say it like that. So,
and that's why we kind of giggle sometimes when people are like, I did not consent to this. You're not allowed to do this. These are my rights. You don't have any rights. You made a personal choice already, who you were going to be the son, who you were going to be the allegiance to. You made your choice. The problem is we all chose wrong. We chose a costume. We chose a character from a movie. We identify every time, every morning we zip up. We're this person, the all caps name, the legal fiction. It's pretend. It's make believe. It's a fiction. Fiction's not real.
Fiction's not real. So
which means nothing we touches.
Which means everything in your life as a consequence was also not real. Believe it or not. When you go outside your front door and you start acting in a production, or when you start participating in a play or in theater,
acting,
or when you're acting, that's not the real you. It's something else. When it's not the real you, it's the human in you. It's the human that you put on every day. It's the monster suit. It's the monster mask you put on. And as a monster, we all kind of know what that word means.
No, we don't actually, because we haven't got that yet. So why don't we talk about that? When it says that a person is a human, let's look up what the meaning of human is. Because here's the thing. I specifically remember putting a post up of a nice little quote of what human meant. It was halo. It was your aura. I was like, oh, that feels so nice. That's wonderful. And I shared it, only to find out that the meaning of human means monster. It's a trick on words. So as we go down the rabbit hole, we look up, what does monster mean? It's a prodigious birth. Prodigious, I think that's how you say it. Prodigious birth.
Prodigious or yeah,
prodigious.
Sure.
It's a human birth or offspring not having the shape of mankind.
Whoa. Not having the shape of mankind.
What's that?
Okay, without being gender specific here. When we say mankind, we mean womankind as well. Okay, but point is right here, it's an offspring not having the shape of mankind. Okay, what is the word shape? What's that referring to? That's referring to the image. It doesn't look like a man or a woman anymore. It's something else. It's morphed into something else. It has taken on the spirit of darkness. It has taken on the spirit of something that wants to hurt me. Where are there good monsters? Maybe in Disney's few movies, there's a few good monsters, but not very many. For the most part, monsters represent evil, do they not? Could we basically agree there? I think we can. So,
and then look what it says. It cannot be an heir to any land.
So as a human, you cannot be an heir. Only our Father in heaven can create an heir, and we'll come up with a proof for that one later, to any land. So if you're not allowed to be on the land, if you can't be an heir and be connected to the land, which is strange because you came from the land, did you not? Were we not born from the dust? You know, somebody mixed a little bit of mud and some water and I don't know, maybe a few other things and then whipped up this
Cosmic
thing
juice
and breathed life into the nostrils of this piece of dirt. We came from the land as well. So if you're not allowed to interact, or if you're not allowed to have any connection to the land, this is a big problem, loved ones.
Big problem.
This is a huge problem. If you're not on the land, where are you? There's one of two options left. You're either in the air or you're in the sea. One of the two. There's only 3 elements out there. If you want to suggest you're in the fire, well, okay, yeah, actually you are in the fire. Point being, mankind has now been removed from the equation. Creator created a man and a woman. Creator did not create human beings. Creator did not create persons.
Or monsters.
Or monsters. So
what does it mean when it says, albeit brought forth in marriage?
So the monster happens when you take a little of A and you mix it with a little of B, and it produces C.
Things that are offsprings that are not the shapes of mankind, keep in mind.
So again, this is where corporations, things on paper, to create a business, you have to fill out some paperwork, and then you have to send that paperwork to the government, and then they send it back saying, yes, okay, we agree, we recognize that you want to create this business or this name, so here's a number that we're going to attach to that name so that you can go do things with this business. Whatever it is that's your business, you can go do. So again, this is where the marriage or the union comes in. You take a little bit of, think of Frankenstein for a minute here. You take a little bit of this.
Perfect example.
And a little bit of that, you stitch it together. The thing's not living yet, but you're looking at something on a table, and then down comes a lightning bolt and charges this guy up. And all of a sudden he sits up from the table.
And we'll talk about what charges him soon.
And this thing is alive all of a sudden, or it appears to be alive. It may be dead on the inside. It may not be able to express emotions, but this thing can run around. This thing can do certain things. So again, a corporation is able to be a representative or can identify what a man or woman wants to be. Now, again, this is where our creator does not want us acting as anything else other than what he or she created. The moment that we break that rule, we get into a lot of hot water really quick.
So, loved ones, we are at an hour. Some of our queens do have to go because they do have responsibilities. And of course, you are more than welcome to leave. We have a small section that we're going to keep going on for those of you that decided to show up. Thank you for that. And that's why we're going to carry on just for a little bit longer here. Okay, so we're going to talk about, under the definition of a monster, it says that a prodigious birth. I love my English language and words. And so I was like, what is a prodigious? So I went and looked it up. Now, it was interesting to me, and I actually put this into the document because as I looked it up, there is today's version, and then there's the archaic version, which is what we were talking about. So let's read what today's version of prodigious means. Remarkably or impressively great in extent, size, or degree. Sounds good. Well, let's look what it means when it's archaic.
The old-fashioned version.
Unnatural or abnormal.
Okay, loved ones, if we're unnatural, that means you're not natural. If you're not natural, what are you? If you're not normal, what are you? And again, my brother broke this one down with the way he famously put it, and this caused a lot of fights in jail for us. Aboriginal people. We think of the Native Americans or the Native Canadians or the Indigenous people. Wrong. And here's why. If they were here first, they would have been called the normal people. What happens as soon as you put the word AB in front of normal? You get abnormal. That means you're something else. You're not normal. You're not right. You're sick. You're whatever. So when you have original people, and then you have aboriginal people,
Abnormal.
you got the opposite of original people all of a sudden. Again, that word, that prefix, again, I didn't do well in English in school because I didn't pay attention at all. I was busy doing other things, apparently. Point being, as soon as you put a prefix in front of a word, you completely change the definition of that word. I know this, and I'm the one that failed high school. So, again, normal and abnormal, unnatural. Do you want to be natural or unnatural? Do you want to be normal or abnormal? Big, really, really important stuff happening here, loved ones.
So now that we know American, Australian, African, Canadian, whatever it is actually a person meaning corporation, an unnatural, abnormal monster. That's a mouthful. That's a big thing. Because now we're claiming to be a citizen of a country, and yet children of our Father.
So when you're being double-minded like that, when you're suggesting I'm a son of Canada, Britain sends its sons to war. Britain sends its daughters to make bread. Whatever. Point being, when you are the son of a country, you cannot be the son of your creator at the same time. It does not work. Pick one. Unfortunately, we all have chosen to be a son of or a daughter. We've all chosen to be a son of our country. This is a big part of where the word person comes from.
We are now exercising dual citizenship. Canadian, or whatever your nationality is, citizenship. If you got a passport, you already did it. And then we're claiming to be citizens of the kingdom of heaven.
It's impossible. You can't be both.
And this is where cult comes in.
Yeah.
Let's talk about cult.
Sure. Yep. Okay, so if you vote, you belong to a cult. You are pledging your membership and allegiance continuously to a corporation. A synonym for a corporation is what, loved ones? A person. Let's back that up for a moment. You know, I remember when I was in school, they talked about our country's culture. They talked about culturalism. They talked about all things cult. And I didn't really know at the time, but it turns out, you know, it's often looked or it's frowned upon when you say, oh, look at that man and woman. They're part of a cult. They're following that one man's advice. Because that's typically how a cult is structured. You got a group of people following whatever this one man or woman says, right? That's a cult, according to them. What is a country? Is a country not the exact same thing? You got a group of people doing exactly what your president or your prime minister says. Are you not following a man? Are you not taking everything he says?
Yearly.
Daily, hourly, by the second? So again, we need to look deeper at some of these words here. Again,
Pledging our allegiance yearly, over and over.
How do you pledge your allegiance every year? Through your taxation forms.
Renewing your driver's license.
They snare us every chance they get. Every time that you act in person, or every time you assume that identity, whenever you say you are the name of your country.
As a person, then we made ourselves a graven image, an idol.
And this is right out of scripture. Again, this isn't what Divergence has come up with.
And we'll talk about, we got scriptures coming up to back persons up the wazoo.
So again, when you hear the word grave, what do you think of? Do you think of a 6-foot deep hole in the ground in a wooden box and there's a body hiding in there somewhere? That's a grave, correct? So what would a graven image represent? Would that image represent something in a grave? Sure would. Would that image represent a graven body?
Something dead.
Something dead? Sure would.
So here's the thing. A person means a creation of man. It's a corporation.
A graven image is also an idol. Your mom and dad helped to create an idol for you so that when you got to the correct age, you would decide to worship an idol.
Yourself.
What do you mean worship an idol? This name on this little piece of plastic that was created by your parents and the state just for you is evidence of an idol. You worship it because you are it.
Look at me.
You claim to be it. You live and die by it. You will take on liability. You will conduct all kinds of commerce. You will intercourse with this thing till your dying day. This creation of men comes from the corporations. It wasn't born with you when you came out of your mother. It was attached to you much later. It wasn't born unto you. It was attached to you.
So all churchgoers, you're serving two masters.
When you're serving two masters, you're double-minded. And when you're double-minded, you're not stable in your ways. And when you're not stable in your ways, you may be deemed a lunatic. And when you're a lunatic, you may not have any property rights whatsoever. Why? Because you're crazy. You can't comprehend shit. You can't manage your own affairs. You're so out there. Somebody else will do it for you.
Because who would make themselves into an image and hand over all of their God-given inheritance?
This
is the point.
They wouldn't do that intentionally. And this is where
unless they were tricked.
Unless they were tricked. And this is where equity comes in. Equity is a much more powerful set of laws. It's a much more powerful set of rules. Equity is over here watching what we're doing with these names and these numbers and these pieces of plastic and these graven images and these idols. Equity is watching us saying, you know what, you shouldn't be doing that. But if you so choose to continue, we can't stop you.
Free will.
You're exercising your free will, and equity will not get in your way. You are in complete control. You can do whatever it is you choose to do.
So we've had people in the past say, Jesus is going to save me. Can you please explain that a little bit?
Jesus came to save us once. How is he going to come and save us again when you've got a mask on? Aren't we supposed to develop a personal relationship with Christ? Or whichever prophetic figure in your culture's religious texts.
Higher power.
The higher power, whatever that deity or that entity is. When you cannot relate to it, when you cannot have a relationship with it, when you cannot connect with it, because you've thrown something up in the middle that prevents that from happening. This mask that you're wearing, this person that you identify as,
Jesus can't see you.
Jesus can't see you. Your Father cannot see you. Therefore, you get nothing but doors slammed in your face.
And he already saved us once. And then we zipped up the suit and walked our asses right back into Egypt.
So you can see why Christ would probably be a little bit pissed. You can probably see why our Father is probably a little bit not happy with the way shit's gone down. Although his book talks about all of this happening, we still choose to do these profoundly, inherently wrong, evil things.
So Jesus is not coming to save you. If you're waiting for Jesus to save you, you're going to be waiting a long time. I keep doing this a lot this episode.
Yeah.
I seem to be yelling a lot. But that's the point. If you're sitting there waiting, what's the point of this school? How does that benefit you? How does that serve mankind? How does that make us rise? No, Jesus gave us the tools. Rise.
Get on it.
Let's do this.
Prove to him that you're worthy. Stop sitting around on the couch, acting in person, waiting to be saved. Guess what, loved ones? It's not happening.
And that includes handouts from us. You're not going to get it. We're going to make you work for it. We're going to make you show up.
We have to. We have to work as one team.
Why give you the keys to the kingdom? You'd make a mess of it. There's already people in a mess.
This is reminiscent of being organized, being prepared, being knowledgeable, having your wits about you, being expectant of,
Capable.
there you go. You're capable of all kinds of stuff. We cannot throw a loved one in front of a judge with no training, with no
Language.
without any wisdom. Trust me, I've tried. I've actually sent in some of my friends to court. They've gotten there. They've gotten before the judge. And one of the first things the judge says to him when he reads the paperwork is the judge is like, okay. Yeah. Okay. So would you mind just explaining to me what is the exact remedy you're seeking? And my friend said, I don't know. And the judge is like, well, then how the hell can I help you if you don't know what the hell it is you want? Get out of my courtroom. I took that as a slap in the face. That's me literally not doing the best I can to help bring a fellow loved one up to task, up to par. I sent him in too early. He wasn't ready.
Into the wolves.
This is a big part. Everybody wants remedy. Yeah, we know that. The remedy will actually come a lot quicker the sooner you understand it. And here's why. Because I don't have to completely give you the remedy. I can give you several of the steps, and by your own intuition, you'll be able to take those steps and go, okay, well, if this and this equals this, and that equals that, is it logical that if I put A and B together, I'm going to get C? Without Darren or Divergence even telling me about C. Would that work? This is where we're trying to inspire you to get your own mind and your own heart working. Get those pistons pumping hard. Let's get a lot of heat moving around here. Let's
work together.
Work
No
together.
more handouts. Come on. We're not here to hand out keys to the kingdom. Go find them. We'll show you. We've got maps. Go here, go here, go here.
And this is where the sooner we can get you involved and get you contributing, we're actually going to all get there a lot sooner. Because I'm fearful of this. I know of, through the grapevine, several people that have made it through and transitioned and gotten to the land of safety. They've gotten out of the corporate construct or the corporate matrix. They've escaped. And then you never hear of these people again. I, believe it or not, I don't want to check out tomorrow with access to a whole bunch of money and then not have the ability to still teach people. That might sound ridiculous, but that's why I'm here.
Not serving equity.
I'm here to do the ridiculous, people. Yes, that's my role. And so is Dean's. We were chosen to do some incredibly, I don't want to say, all I'm saying here.
Did you just use a filter?
Yeah, I filtered that one. Okay. We are not meant to get here, check out, and then leave everybody behind. That's not why I'm here. I actually volunteer many nights before I fall asleep. Send me, Father. I want to go through last. Why do I want to go through last? Because I want to make sure you go through before me, which is an oxymoron, though, because now people they accuse me of this. Well, Darren, in Divergence, what makes you think all the stuff you talk about is going to work? Well, you know what? I have an incredibly good intuition. I've read and I've looked at a lot of legal stuff. I've looked and I've read a lot of equity stuff. I'm pretty sharp on my feet. I can process stuff rather quickly. From what I'm looking at, There is divine purpose in all of this. This is all for a reason. This isn't random, and this is not a mistake.
Feel it.
If I were to check out tomorrow and not be able to help any more of you, what was the point? I like fancy cars and boats and helicopters and planes and all. What? Sure, those are just tools. They're just things for us to use. They're here for a reason. They came from the land. Point being, I would rather help as many people get through before I do. So again, I get kicked in the teeth for this one all the time. Well, Darren, if you haven't gotten through, why would we listen to anything you say? Here's why. Because I'm trying to show you a trail of breadcrumbs that was laid down that very few people could see. Dean and I and many other loved ones have been stumbling onto this breadcrumb trail, and we're doing the best we can to bring everything to you and get you right up to speed so that you can go through first. And if I never hear from you again, it worked, correct? And if we get a little email or a text saying, hey, thanks, that's all I ever need. I don't even need the thanks. I don't need to be thanked for doing what I do. Why? Because I serve a greater power. I do not need 3D thanks from people for everything I do. I do not need to be patted on the back. Neither do any of the queens saying, nice job. Look at all the stuff that you're doing. No, because you know why? We were supposed to do this anyway.
But if you do get through and we don't hear from you again, we could have done better.
Yeah, I mean, I like fruit and nut bars. You should definitely, send some chocolate our way or a gift basket
you better
or
be bringing
something.
a whole lot more to the world than that, let me tell you. With that, loved ones, we are done, more than done our hour. Again, we're going to be running this Monday to Friday. We don't know when this is going to stop. Again, once you can tell, once this one gets on a roll, it's really hard to stop them. But again, being respectful of our queen's time and all of the effort that it takes to be able to build this. Thank you again, queens, for all of your help. Loved ones, thank you for showing up. We will see you tomorrow, same time. Thank you so much. Bye.
Love you guys. Love you.